call this meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission of the City of Davenport to order. Today is Tuesday, October 8th, 2024. Call to order, please take the roll.
Gomez? Here. McGivern?
Here.
Eaton? Here. Hestetti?
Here.
Kretz?
Here.
Franken absent, and Adams.
Here. Okay. First item up is the Secretary's report, consideration of the September 19th meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Chris. Moving on to communication. Matt?
Okay, I've just got one update, and that's our last walking tour of the downtown is this Thursday at 10 a.m. So that's the last one of the season. So I think they've been well attended. So hopefully we can do something similar next year, maybe even pick a different district to explore. So
Sounds good. Is Ellen hired by the city to do that or the library?
the library hires her, and then the commission splits the cost with
Okay.
her. So it's a 50-50
Very good.
cost share.
Yeah, she does a nice job. Nothing else?
Nothing else.
Then moving on to old business. Is there any old business? Matt?
Nothing.
Moving to new business. Now, do I have to have a motion to readjust the agenda?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'd like us all to turn to point number 2. This is case, and I'll let you bring it up here.
There we go.
Case DNR HP 2402, request for demolition of 202 Forest Road. The home is a contributing structure in the McClellan Heights National Historic District. Russell Construction is the petitioner, and we have Creighton here this evening representing that group. Matt?
All right, so the subject property, it's 202 Forest Road. So it's kind of located right at the intersection of Fernwood Avenue and Forest Road. It's a through lot with the backyard being Essex Lane. So this is a property, it's on the National Register of Historic Places in the McClellan Heights Historic District. It's listed as a contributing structure. It's a single-family home that was built in 1923. So the request is to have the structure demolished. So the applicant purchased the home just this summer for a price of $140,000. So due to the neglect of previous ownership, the applicant has cited issues of rotting, termite damage, mold deterioration, as well as structural concerns. They also provided an estimated cost to rehabilitate the structure. So general budget for the abatement, disassembling, structural repairs, and rebuilding the house, they estimated a cost of about $300 to $400 per square foot, bringing the price point to about $900 to $1.2 million to bring the house back up to where the petitioner feels like it would be adequate. So demolition and abatement is estimated at between $100,000 to $200,000. Structural repairs about $100,000 to $150,000, and then the cost to rebuild, so basically disassemble and then rebuild, $700,000 to about $850,000. The Scott County Assessor's Office shows an assessed value of $283,000 for the property. So following demolition, the applicants will either market the site for future development of a single-family home or potentially sell the lot to adjacent property owners for just additional yard. While maybe not relevant to our decision-making today, I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the commission that the city does have residential design standards for new construction in this zoning district. So if a house were to be rebuilt on this site, while it wouldn't come to us for review, the city does have criteria in place that regulate the form and massing of homes to help ensure compliance that they meet the character of a historic district or an established neighborhood. So here's just kind of a few photos of the existing home. So it was purchased over the summer, so the current property owner has done a little bit of work kind of clearing some of the weeds and vegetation that was overgrowing the site. So in a pretty significant state of deterioration and neglect with rotting and damage, potential structural concerns as well. So I just kind of want to go over our demolition review process for national structures. So basically, when you have a national structure that's proposed for demolition, the commission needs to make a determination to either list the structure as a local landmark or issue the demolition request. So in the event that the commission votes to delay demolition, it must occur by a 3/4 vote of its members present. At that time, staff would prepare an individual property nomination to see if it conforms with our standards for historic preservation on its own merit. So for a property to be listed as a local landmark, it needs to meet one of the 3 criteria. So the first one being it needs to be associated with the event of a person that made a significant contribution to the patterns of the city or region. Second option would be it embodies a distinctive characteristic of an architectural style, valuable to the study of a type, period, or method of construction. Or the third criteria would be it represents the work of a master builder, craftsman, architect, engineer, or landscape architect. So with that in mind, staff reviewed documents that we have available for this property. So we know that it's listed as a contributing structure within the historic district. However, in reading through the McClellan Heights nomination form, there's actually very little information about this home. It's likely that it's contributing in the fact that in McClellan Heights, many of these homes together give a historic district its character, but maybe not this one specifically and individually on its own. Staff was unable to identify any historic events or persons associated with the property, and the work does not appear to be that of a master builder or architect. And then over the summer, there were several just zoning code and property maintenance violations. There was a notice to secure and board up the building. There's a debris violation and then a violation for weeds and overgrown vegetation. So really with that, staff is recommending that the commission approve the demolition request, and that's with the finding that the structure does not meet the criteria to be listed as a local landmark. So that little kind of cutout at the bottom of the screen, that's really the information that was listed in the inventory form for this property. So not a lot of evidence or research or documentation kind of outline a greater historical significance in the city.
Thank you, Matt. To the commission members, any questions or comments? Or Craig is here to speak on behalf of the owners. If you have any questions, you can direct them to him or to Matt if you have questions about any of the criteria that he mentioned about the pros and cons of demolition. I'm assuming I'm not hearing anything, meaning you are in agreement with staff, or Bob?
Obviously, I wasn't inside it, but there's no, just not even financially feasible to shell it and just completely gut it from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, from what we can tell, and we would obviously have to do a lot more investigation, but I mean, we do this quite a bit, and my recommendation would literally be to tear it down to bare studs on both sides, just based on what I'm seeing, because if we don't, you're potentially covering up more problems. So that's basically why it costs so much. You would have to disassemble it rather than knocking it down and then basically rebuild a whole new house, which is why it's so costly to even try to attempt to salvage it. And my guess with the amount of termite evidence we've seen is you'd get it down to studs and there wouldn't hardly be any anyway.
Right.
So it's unfortunately too far gone to feasibly do anything without spending a lot of money, obviously.
Anyone else? Okay.
So, what was the original intent in buying this? I mean,
Yeah, so it was bought by the Russells, who also live in the McClellan Heights. And they've obviously dedicated a lot of time and resources to fixing up the properties they own. And it's just, it doesn't look good in the neighborhood, and it would look better with, as a green space or. So that was the only intent on their end, was just to help make the neighborhood look better, so.
Follow-up question, or?
It's just a comment. It's a little problematic if, just because I live in a neighborhood and I have the resources to create green space because there's a house I don't like. But this follows the significance of the neighborhood. You know, these are the styles of the homes of the neighborhood and everything. It's just my observation that we can circumvent because I don't like this house, it's up the block from my house. So the intent was to present here. That's what I'm getting at this moment.
Go ahead.
I don't want to speak for them completely, but that was the information given to me was, it doesn't look good as is, and, so that was why they purchased it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the photographs that we have up here don't show it the way it looked about 6 months ago or 5 months ago even. The lot was quite overgrown. It was in really bad shape. The photographs that we have of the interior clearly show a distressed building. Are there other parts of the building that still maintain the quality of that 1920s, 1930s woodwork and the rest, or is it pretty well shot through?
Yeah, that's a pretty good representation of how it looks throughout. To be honest, it's not real great to even have people in there to get these photographs, so it's in pretty bad shape.
Okay, so it's unlikely that there'll be any salvage of historic or significant woodwork or anything?
No, there wasn't anything in there that was remarkable.
Okay. Yeah.
Driving by this house, and I can see the existing condition, but to Mr. Gomez's point, this is a slippery slope to get on, that people are buying historic homes with the sole intention of demolishing them. So I think we need to be careful on this. I say in this case, I know where I'm leaning, but in the long run, we need to discourage that.
It does raise the question of what are owners' responsibilities toward their property and whether or not this commission has any power to ask owners to be responsible. I mean, the previous owner clearly allowed this to deteriorate.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like these people are well aware of that they're in a historic district. It's not like they didn't know that.
I will
They
say.
knew what was gonna happen.
I will say Jim was surprised that this was included, and once again, I can't speak to what he should or shouldn't know, but he was surprised that this was considered historical. So for what that's worth, yeah. For what that's worth.
I guess, I have nothing for you at all, so I just will wait.
Okay, I guess listening to what Matt has said, what you have said, Creighton, and respecting these concerns, the reason this particular building is considered significant to the neighborhood is because it's one of many homes that were built. And if you read the materials, how we built from south to north in this area, and so there's a variety of housing styles. So it's significant in the sense that it is of an era. The building itself apparently was not built by a master craftsman, or at least one that we could find out. No historical event or personage came out of this house. The sole reason that it's considered significant is because of its location. Now, I would be concerned if Russell or whomever tore this down and they moved a double wide into that area, or anything like that. And of course, we don't have any control over what goes in exactly, but it sounds like the city does. There are,
Correct. There are residential design standards for new construction in two of our zoning districts, so two of our single-family and two-family residential districts that are generally located in the core of the city. And that regulates, okay, so this slide kind of shows it. It gives the city the ability to regulate building massing and orientation, facade design, fenestration, roof form, building materials, as well as roofing materials. So when staff get permit applications to construct a new, let's say, single-family home within a district, one of the things that we do is we look at the character and context of that street and the adjacent homes and make sure that what's being proposed is consistent with that vocabulary on that street face. And then work with property owners to try to get the highest and best design for that area. So that would occur should a new single-family home be developed on this lot.
okay. Any other questions? Any other discussion then? Yeah, Bob?
I guess a couple of things. One, Matt, at some time, I would like to have the commission get a little bit more review of the residential design standards for new construction, because one, I wasn't aware we had it, and two, I think this is an issue that we're gonna have sooner rather than later in neighborhoods that haven't seen construction in 75 years. Secondly, in the Heights, we have seen over 20 years some tear downs and reconstruction and they've done well. I mean, if you look at the purchase price of the property, it's probably site value, probably rich on that side, but there was really no contributory value to the improvements. If it can be salvaged or not, I don't think it's going to make an adverse impact to the neighborhood, but if it does, the petitioner is among a handful of people that have developed in the Heights area, and I wouldn't be concerned about an end product if they got there. So it's not improving the neighborhood, and it has been an issue for some time. So I'd advocate for the acceptance of the permit.
Any other comments or concerns? Hearing none, we'll go to a vote. First, a motion concerning the recommendation by the staff.
I'll move to approve the request of 202 Forest Road per staff recommendation.
Second?
Second.
Very good, we got him. Roll call, please, Matt.
Eaton,
Yes.
Hastedi,
Yes.
Kretz,
Yes.
Adams,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, it passes. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Creighton, appreciate your time. I think Alex Bach, yes, came in. Alex, we're going to shift back to the first item on the agenda. Matt, if you can pull back to, this is a case COA 24-18. Request for the installation of replacement siding at 517 Ripley Street. The Nesbitt Rental House is a contributing structure in the Hamburg Local Landmark Historic District. Alex Bach is the petitioner. Matt?
All right, so this is a familiar home that we just saw, I think, a couple months ago. So the property owner is in the process of currently rehabbing this cottage. So it's located on Ripley Street, just on the north side of the alley. It's a small single-family home, and you actually can see that photograph from 1910 of an aerial. So a little bit of background on this request. So really the purpose is to address an underlying issue in the construction of this building. So the structure does not currently contain any sheathing. So sheathing is a covering that's applied to the framework of a home. It serves multiple purposes. provide structural integrity to the structure, insulation, energy efficiency, as well as protection from weather and pests. So to make this building livable again, new sheathing needs to be applied to the home as well as vapor barrier. So this is really addressing really an irregular construction method that exists on the property. So when this home was first built in 1857, it was built without this sheathing. Instead, clapboard siding was nailed directly into the studs. So that image on the right that you see is the interior of the house. I was lucky enough to get a tour over the summer, thanks to the petitioner. And the wood siding really is just kind of nailed onto the framework. So any slight gap between the boards, you literally see directly to the outside. So really the purpose kind of driving this petition is to address this construction and building code issue. But as far as the commission is concerned, since our review is the exterior of the building, as part of this process to make it livable, the applicant needs to install new siding on the home. So currently you have a wood clapboard siding. The petitioner is proposing to re-side the house once when the sheathing work and interior remodel is done with an LP Smart Siding product. So this is an engineered wood product. It provides the look and warmth of a natural wood. However, it's durable and low maintenance like a modern building product. So they're proposing to do a horizontal 6-inch lap siding with new trim around the windows and the gables. So here's just a couple photos of the exterior of the home. You could see the rear side off the alley has much more deterioration around those boards. Yeah, so with that, a recommendation is made to approve the certificate of appropriateness for the installation of new siding in accordance with the submitted LP Smart Siding material. This is a product that's been approved in the past for the Hamburg Historic District. So city staff reviewed the request for conformance with our historic preservation ordinance, and it meets the below standards. That every reasonable effort be made to make the minimum number of changes to keep the property in good state of repair. And 2, that any deteriorated features should, where possible, be repaired. However, if you cannot repair, to use replacement products that best match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities.
Questions or comments from commission members? Alex, if I could just ask one question. Has the existing wood siding deteriorated significantly? I mean, is it in really bad shape?
I don't know if I'd say it's in really bad shape. Something that I did include in my submission to Matt is that it's warping, it's splitting, it's covered with nail holes because 100 some odd years worth of siding has been put on over it throughout the years.
Oh, okay,
So it's never going to be air or moisture tight.
okay.
And so and actually, the reason I didn't put this in with my previous request a few months ago is because I really wanted to save that siding. And I explored all kinds of different options, but ultimately none of them were going to be. So this was the best alternative I was able to come up with to kind of modernize this. Back in the day, they kind of just blasted heat out of these places, and that took care of that. Well, we've gone pretty much the complete opposite direction now with efficiency. So that creates a moisture problem inside of those walls.
Okay. My understanding is you're actually going to leave the existing siding on. You're going to sheet it over, have some sort of vapor barrier, and then the new siding on top of that.
That's correct. Yep.
So 50 years from now, when Daddy Warbucks comes in here with multi-millions of dollars and wants to go back to the original house, they'll be able to remove your product, and that will still be there, and they can take that all off, put new sheeting behind it, and put this back on.
Absolutely, they can. Yep.
That's kind of the, okay.
Yep.
So we're just kind of stabilizing the house, and it'll conform to the neighborhood.
Correct.
Other questions or comments? Bob?
Other than I just think that this is a great material that's really available for present day that it wasn't 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Before, all you had was cement board, and it was so expensive you couldn't afford it. And I don't think that, this is kind of gapping it together for, 20 years. I think this is, hopefully it's gonna look really great and it'll last a great deal of time. And I think this is a great solution for the other properties in the neighborhood. I really do.
Yeah, I see a lot of.
Yeah.
Jeff?
So, there's gonna be new trim work around the windows too? Does that change the profile? Because now you're adding thickness to that by adding onto the siding. So how does that affect that molding?
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. We would get the closest match, with what LP offers.
And my question goes too, because many times I see houses get sided and they just put molding, vinyl or metal or whatever over the wood. And there was an OG or something, some kind of detail that is now completely lost. It's just a flat, look. So, and then with this, my other thought is, so now I've added whatever depth that is. Are the windows going to be more inset? How does this visually play off though too? I think it's a great product. I'm for it. I just want to know that it's a cohesive look.
Sure. So we are getting ready to replace the windows as well. That's something you guys approved. So that's why, this is good timing for that. We'll be able to set the window depth appropriately. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Anything else? Chris, any questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Hearing nothing else, move to a vote. Could I have a motion on?
I motion to approve. Move to approve.
Do I hear a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded to approve the request as provided by staff. Roll call, please, Matt.
Kretz,
Yeah.
Adams,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
Eaton,
Yes.
Hastati.
Yes. It's been moved and approved. We now move to our third case. Let you bring that up. There we go. This is case DNR HP 24-03, request for demolition of 2202 West 4th Street. The First Bible Missionary Church is individually listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Adrian Jones is the petitioner. Matt?
All right, so this is a national landmark, so First Bible Missionary Church. So it's located on the corner of 4th Street and Pine Street. This property also has a single-family home and a detached garage just to the north of the church building. Those ones are going to stay. We're just reviewing the demolition of the actual church structure itself. So this is a building that was built in 1902. Originally, it was made for the Berea Congregational Church. Its architecture is characterized by clean, sharp lines with limited decoration. Materials consist of brick on a rock-faced stone basement, and the distinguishing features are its stained glass windows, were noted in the inventory sheet. So this is a request for demolition to a National Register property, so similar to our previous item. But a little bit of background first. So the applicant purchased the property in August of 2019 for a price of $93,500. In June of 2023, the city issued an official notice and order to address structural issues that were identified on the east elevation. And then in August of this year, the building was declared substandard and not safe for occupancy. So when this happens, the owner is really given two options. One is to make the appropriate repairs and accommodations to bring it back up to safe conditions, or the other option would be to have the building demolished. So the property owner hired Export Engineering to perform a structural assessment. And due to the findings in that report, and because of economic hardship, the owner is here before us petitioning demolition of the church. So the engineering report that was conducted this summer the purpose was really to determine the cause of the distress on that east wall. So the engineers hypothesized that a water service line that extends underneath the east wall to Pine Street, it's likely that there was some type of leak in that water main or that water lateral that over the course of, many years, potentially 50 years, it's caused that foundation and footing to erode and then given instability to that wall that sits on top of it. So the engineers stated that they believe the condition to be stable but not robust. It did go as far as to say, high-speed winds or systemic activity might cause a collapse that would fall into Pine Street potentially. And then their finding was that the masonry wall would need to be completely removed and rebuilt to ensure its structural integrity. So here's just a couple of photos of that east wall. You can see some of the brick that's bowing towards the gable above the windows. So this is the same review process because it's a national registered landmark. So really the commission is presented with the option to approve the application for demolition or to consider the criteria to list the building locally. That does require a 3/4 vote. If that's the direction of the commission, what would happen is staff would be instructed to prepare an individual nomination form to see if it meets the criteria outlined in our code. And local landmarks are then approved by city council. So designation process, it needs to meet one of 3 criteria, so I'll just review that again. So it needs to be associated with an event or person that's made significant contribution to the history of the city. It needs to embody a distinctive characteristic of an architectural style. Or 3, it needs to represent the work of a master builder, craftsman, architect, engineer, or landscape architect. So with that, staff reviewed available resources to try to get a better understanding on the history of this building. So based off of our research, there does not appear to be any historic events or persons associated with the property. So the nomination form states that the significance is associated with a minor Protestant congregation in the community. And I quote, "It played no statewide religious role and had no important religious leaders associated with it." There also does not appear to be a master builder or craftsman or architect associated with the home. The survey itself actually highlights the church's lack of grandly ornamental architecture. In fact, it's probably more historically significant in the fact that it's a modest vernacular style building, typical of maybe a residential congregation. So the property was purchased by the petitioner, we know, in 2019. According to Scott County parcel report, its assessed value of just the church building, because I had to separate that out from the home and garage, is just over $60,000. And then I just kind of highlighted the 3 code enforcement violations starting in June of 2023 to have this issue addressed. So based on those findings, staff is recommending that the commission approve the demolition of the structure, with the finding being that it does not meet the criteria to be listed as a local landmark.
Commissioners, comments or questions? Go ahead.
Matt, if you look at, could you go back to number 2 on there's the 3 possible reasons,
Yep.
not reasons, 3 possible, you know what I mean, the 3.
Criteria, yep.
To me, this meets number 2. It even points out that it's a neighborhood church. There aren't that many of those left. It's unique by its lack of grandeur. It talks about the stained glass windows. To me, it meets number 2. I don't know what everybody else thinks about that.
Other comments or questions?
Well,
George?
the question I had before your comment was, are there any other churches in the area that are less grand, that still, are representative of this style of small, non-mainstream parishes? That's not the right word, but if you know what I mean. That will remain in parts of Davenport that still can meet this niche without a huge financial impact on an owner.
I don't have an answer for you on that tonight. That would require me to do a little bit more research, but that's a good point to bring up.
There is a small church on Third and Pine that was originally an Episcopal church before they started merging into what's now Trinity. So that is down there. My only thing is, because the windows are expressly spoken to in the survey, are those going to be, are those able to be salvaged?
I would direct that question to the petitioner and see if that was something that he could speak to.
Apologize for my tardiness earlier. But to answer your question, I would like to preserve those windows. I already contacted a stained glass company to remove those windows out, because I do know the German heritage. Preserve those, and even the bell inside the bell tower. The German heritage.
Bob, you look like you had a question or comment. I have a question for you. No. You were dealt a very poor hand, right? You bought the building in 2019, anticipating that it was probably relatively sound. And it sounds like, and I mentioned this to Matt earlier, it sounds like the water company had a bad line and they have caused this trouble. But apparently there's no recourse on the water company, is that right? We can't go back to anyone else and say, hey, help this person out.
So it wouldn't be from what we understand, it's the service line, so it would be the property's lateral. It wouldn't be on the water company directly. That would have been at the main.
Okay, so it's part of the owner's line.
Correct.
Ah, all right. This is a tough one. This really is, because unlike the previous demolition request, this building does play a role, and this is probably why you bought it. It is really a classic piece of neighborhood architecture. And it obviously has over 100 years history in that area. The cost of repairing that wall, what avenues have you pursued for either state or local grants to help you with that?
As far as the grant is concerned, I've been told that the grant, because it's a church building, it's not residential, nor is it business. It's in the middle of the gray area,
So it's not eligible?
Do you own it? Is your name on the title, or is there a nonprofit
It's
of the
my
church?
name. My name.
See, I think that, I'm not a lawyer, but is not technically a church that doesn't pay taxes because it's not owned by a nonprofit. It's owned by an individual person, so I don't know if that opens up the grants or not.
Who is paying taxes, right? From what we saw, you have been paying taxes on this building.
So what it's being used for, I don't think would really matter as far as getting grants, because it's not a church legally.
For those of you who've
Not a
had,
lawyer.
no, very good. Those of you who had more experience with this.
I just have questions for staff.
Oh, go ahead and, will you hold on while he
I'm good. Take a seat.
grills the staff?
Laura, I'm going to just talk to you. Let's talk about the 500-pound gorilla in the room. So someone comes up here, a petitioner, and they talk about structural issues. And what do? Look, this is the reality of the world we're in right now. So I think, my personal opinion, I really believe in this neighborhood and this corridor. I think this is just directly west of the historic district. We said we were going to resurvey a couple of years ago, because the city was redoing the one-ways, and we've got all that kind of mojo focus going towards that part of the town. So I think we'd really regret in the future if we lost this structure. I think it is a contributory significance to the neighborhood. But real property rights, and they're talking about structural issues, and we're in the reality of we are, and I think I need some guidance from staff on that.
Specifically, what will happen if,
No, let's talk about the concern of structural.
yeah,
I've seen the structural report. Was that
Yes.
part of their recommendation? I really need to understand that.
yes. Do you want to speak a little
So
bit?
the engineering report that was done, it's not a structural report. An engineer went to the property, evaluated their conditions that they observed. So it wasn't a true, here's how you rebuild it piece by piece, or what they recommend. That would be a separate report that would need to get contracted out. So this was, the report that was provided largely identified the potential problem. So further steps would need to be taken to identify repair and costs associated with that repair.
Part of that report was imminent issue of collapse, and that was evaluated, and that's where the stable but not robust comment came from, because originally they closed Pine Street to over concern of this collapsing into Pine Street. So it's not as in-depth as I think that we could go in terms of a structural report, in terms of what the solution would be to fix it, but I believe that was part of the report about rebuilding the east wall. And so you basically have to go in and fix the footing, and then.
I would just think that with the subjectivity of the concern of losing the structure, if structural is an issue, then it's on the burden of the petitioner to provide documentation that really clarifies that. If there's no imminent danger, if there's imminent danger, well then, or even a concern of imminent danger, then I think staff has to tell us that. Otherwise, I would think we'd maybe want to see better documentation. That's just my viewpoint.
Okay, so, two things. So you can table the action tonight if you want. I don't think the petitioner would be able to get that information in 30 days. However, we have a petition on the floor. If a decision's not made within the 60 days, it's considered an approval of a demolition. So unless the petitioner's willing to delay it. So we're unfortunately on the back foot in terms of time frame associated with that. So I don't know what definitely to say about that piece of it.
I do want to state too, the way that the historic preservation ordinance is written is there's two paths for demolition. There's a route for local landmarks, which outlines economic hardship, and the cost to save a building gets factored into that decision-making. And then there's the path for national landmarks, where the commission needs to decide, is the structure worthy of being designated as a local landmark? If yes, it requires approval by city council. So let's say, so city council needs to make a yes/no vote on its designation as a local landmark. Hypothetically, let's say city council agrees, designates it as a local landmark, the petitioner still has the right to apply under economic hardship.
So really, to reframe what we're looking at today is just 3/4 of the commission believe that it meets the criteria to locally list it.
What's difficult here, for me at least, is that the owner of this structure did not purchase a building and then deliberately allow it to deteriorate. I mean, it's not on you for what's going on there exactly. At the same, go ahead.
I mean, Mr. Jones, you were involved with this church since, what, 2013, right? So you were well aware of the condition when you bought the building.
2014.
14, okay. Missed it. So, I mean, it's not like you bought this and then, uh-oh, look at what's happening. You were well aware of what was going on. You'd been in that building for 6 years before you became the owner.
Yeah, when I was in the building, and in all honesty, I did not notice the bowing of the wall, at least not that severely, how severely it bowed out. And I did have one question as far as the water line goes, and that's still part of my property, even if it's prior to the meter. If that leakage, even if it never charged me, the water company never charged me, anything like that, if it was prior.
Yep, so once it hits your property line, it's your property.
Anything else? So this was difficult, gentlemen.
I personally would like to consider the path of the process to make it a local landmark, because it's already on the national register. It's not being used as a church. It's your name's on it, so maybe some grant money is available to assist in the rebuild of that wall. So I don't feel comfortable today voting to demolish this building.
I did create a flow chart on the screen, kind of outlining the 3 different options. So option 1, approving demolition. Option 2 being to table for 1 meeting. Knowing full well that the following meeting, we would have to make a decision. Because past 60 days constitutes approval. And then option 3 would be to delay demolition. So that requires a 3/4 vote. And then it directs staff to prepare an individual property nomination. The commission would vote on that nomination at the next meeting. That nomination gets forwarded to city council. So if city council denies the nomination, it constitutes approval of the demolition. If they uphold and list it as a local landmark,
They will.
then the property owner has the right to appeal that through the route of economic hardship.
Yeah, and just to elephant in the room on this one, and it shouldn't necessarily change your position, but just understand that I don't feel that historically speaking, that ends up in favor of a local listing. Sure. So council generally will side with the petitioner and not vote to locally list and allow the demolition to proceed. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you should change your position.
Right.
That's not really your role. You need to function as the Historic Preservation Commission and make that decision. So for review would need to vote to delay demolition and proceed with a local listing if you wanted to do the local listing.
I guess my recommendation would be, you outlined the process, and that's very helpful, so let us just utilize and work the process. And that is, maybe we delay the demolition and ask the owner to seek additional outside expertise on the structural issues. And that should be able to be done within 30 days. And we're not asking for a lot, but if you're asking us to tear it down and it is in such a gray area, at least give us the documentation we can hang our hats on. If not, then, we'll just have to let the council maybe to do it. But I mean, I really hate to put the property owner through this, but it is a slippery slope.
So,
So I think that if the commission was to say, hey, we're going to need required additional information on the structural concerns that really warrant demolition, it also indicates for future applicants that come through here that they're going to need more than, I have a feeling that it's going to cost a lot of money, right?
okay,
Yeah. Does that make sense?
yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. It is my opinion. I may not be right here, but I'm just trying to figure it out.
I hesitate asking staff to go through the nomination process and risk spending your time on this, when I would rather have staff, if it's within your purview, to seek out alternate funding sources to assist the owner to lay out, this is what's possible. So then he has to make the decision, okay, if I can come up with this money, he can come up with that money. So then in a month from now, when we would return to this, we'd have a stronger sense of whether the money is even there. If there is no money there, then I don't see that we have much choice here.
If you look, we're the Historic Preservation Commission.
Exactly.
We need to, I mean, this is.
Try to preserve this.
Try to preserve
Yeah,
historic things.
that's, yeah. Okay, any other questions or comments, or Bob?
We can see what we can get done in 30 days. So if that's the direction you're looking to table, to investigate further if you're basically evaluating, what I'm understanding from the commission is you feel like there may be possibly the avenue that you would like to consider locally listing it, but you would also concurrently like to evaluate a more accurate cost of what it would cost to repair the structure, right? So,
If you're asking us to tear,
yep,
if you're asking the commission to tear something down, we didn't ask it on this other one because the condition was pretty clear in a very small lot, no exposure, kind of, this had some significance, I think point number 2. So should truly demonstrate the functional or the structural issues, and that, would make, if it's financially infeasible to do, then that's great. But I mean, you're asking us to tear it down. You can't build it again. So
sure.
I think the level should be just a little bit higher.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is table tonight, come back next month, see where we're at, and then make a decision on if you're gonna have the 3/4 vote to locally list. Is that what I'm hearing?
Right, you don't need to go that route until after we've had the next meeting. So you're not spending your time on the nomination.
So,
You're spending the next 30 days assisting the
Yeah.
homeowner with options that he may have.
let me clarify something.
Okay,
I think it will help a little bit. When you vote to locally list, then it says in the ordinance, a reasonable amount of time to come back with the local listing documentation. So we don't necessarily, we may do some additional research to help, but that decision, that research would happen after instruction from the commission to move forward with a local listing. Then we bring it back to you to vote on the local listing, then it goes to council.
is that clear for everyone?
Yeah.
Director?
It's kind of a hassle for the
I
homeowner.
have one quick question.
Yeah, Chris?
Could you remind me of the current safety concerns as far as the property? I mean, like, is it going to fall down tomorrow? Is it structurally sound for another possible 6, 12 months? What do we know about that?
So the engineering analysis that was submitted basically stated that the wall was in a stable condition, but not robust. And then it did state that, I believe it was like strong wind or seismic activity
activity.
could cause it to collapse towards Pine Street. Yeah.
Yeah, so really it's more of
Okay.
a where in the season we are, what kind of weather to anticipate.
Okay.
That's why I talked about the 500
Okay.
pound gorilla, because But everyone could come down and say that too, and then it's kind of like, well, then it's just kind of like a standard reply. The threshold is hard because it's the second one today that we've done. Different circumstances, and I hate being in this situation. But this property does have exposure to the community. It does have exposure to the neighborhood. Maybe it does have to be torn down. But more than a paragraph on a letterhead, not seeing it, I think we need more substance to be able to go that far. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
Do we need a motion to table?
Yes.
A motion to table, please,
I move to table the,
proposal?
yeah.
Second for that?
I'll second it.
Very good. This has been moved and seconded to table this particular item for 30 days or to the next meeting. Roll call, Matt?
McGivern? Yes. Eaton?
Yes.
Hestetti?
Yes.
Kretz?
Yes.
Adams? Yes. And Gomez?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you next meeting. Okay. This takes us to other business. Is there other business tonight? Matt?
Not at this time.
Okay. Then the open forum for comment. Any citizen wish to address the commission? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn? Second. And voice vote, all in favor? Aye. Thank you.